What's good with it, people? What's good? Let's get it in. Let's get it in. Alright, so, good and evil. God versus Satan. Okay, let's deal with it. Alright, now we all know the concept of Adam and Eve, right? The story I want to get to is them being in the Garden of Eden, right? And God telling them, right? Now, let's talk. Go to Genesis 2:25 if I'm not mistaken. When you go to Genesis 2:25, depending on what Bible you have, it's gonna say it should say Adam and Eve, they weren't ashamed, right? Now that's very big. Understand that. They weren't ashamed. All right. Now why is that big? All right. Check this out. We talked about good and evil. Okay. We're talking about God, Satan. Now, in that story, right? Depending on what book you have the Old Testament, which is probably the best Bible for you to really, if you want to really get some answers and study of the Old Testament, right? Good and evil. In good and evil, right? In good and evil, there's a concept that people miss, especially in the story. And one of that is the tree of life. We gonna get to what the tree of life is later on, but it's the tree of life, right? Now check this out. We have to ask ourselves a question, right? Now, in a state of perfectness, right, which Adam and Eve were in, right? They were in a state of pleasure, right? Now, the concept I want everybody to pay attention to is duality, okay? Duality. And that's important in this story, okay? That's fucking important in this story because it's teaching about duality, okay? It's teaching about duality. Duality in the sense of when you create something good, okay, you create something bad, okay? In the sense, right? Let's go to old school. Old school, remember consciousness in certain movies? I forget, I can't bring up certain movies, but you have a good person, and then you would have the bad person that comes sit on your shoulder, right? Now, everybody on this face of this earth has a choice to do good or evil. Okay, that's the duality of it. Okay, that's the duality of it. Okay, good and evil. Now, Satan is an old concept. Okay, because before we came into having one religion, Satan was Saturn. Look at the words. Satan was Saturn. Okay? But let me get further down onto the point. Let's look at it. We have a creation of duality. When Adam and Eve was in the garden and they were not ashamed, right? They didn't become ashamed until they ate the fruit, right? They didn't become ashamed until they ate the fruit when their eyes opened, right? Now remember, it's two trees in this story. God says, what verse is that? If they surely eat the tree, they will be like us. Okay, the kindred, like us. Okay, like us. Okay, like us, knowing the difference between good and bad. Remember, once again, go back to Genesis 2:25 when it says, God, I mean not God, Adam and Eve was not ashamed. Okay, they were not ashamed. It wasn't further on down, right? Um, is when they became ashamed because they ate the fruit. They had the serpent, right? The serpent convinced Eve to eat of the tree of what? Of the fruit tree. God did not want them to eat of the tree of life. Okay, that was prohibited. Remember when she did eat the fruit? God cast them down, right? He took him away from the garden. And he, remember he said, Genesis, I cannot think of what you call it, but Genesis 2 something, 2:5 is when he was protecting the tree of life. Okay? Now, people forget about the tree of life. They always talk about the tree of the fruit tree, but the tree of life, they eat of the tree of life, they truly will be like us, like gods, right? God was protecting that. He didn't want man to be gods, okay? Now, we could get into, guess what? The snake, right? The serpent, we should say. Um, convinced, right? Convinced Eve to eat the fruit. She woke up. Adam and Eve woke up. They decided to go get dressed. Okay? They knew of duality, good and evil. Okay? They knew of that. And this is what this story is actually talking about. It's talking about the duality, okay, and how God wanted the people to obey, right? He wanted the people to obey, right? Now, there are certain laws that we have to keep in context, right? Now, when we sit back and we examine the Old Testament, right? You can go to Deuteronomy 20:16 through 18, Joshua 6, 1 Samuel 15, Numbers 31:17, 18, right? And let's get to one of them real quick. Deuteronomy. Let's start with the first one. Deuteronomy. However, in the cities of the nations, the Lord your God is giving you an inheritance. Do not leave anything that breathes. Do not leave anything that breathes. So I'm about to ask you a question. If I told you to go next door, And do not leave. Take your inheritance and do not leave anything that breathes. What is that? What does that mean? I'm asking. What does that mean if I commanded you to go to the neighbor's house, to your neighbor's house, and leave nothing that breathes? Now you have to think how many times God has killed. You can look this up. God has killed millions of people. How many people did Satan kill? Satan killed 10 people. And in those 10 people, he had to ask God permission to kill those 10 people. Do you know what 10 people those were? The 10 people that Satan killed was Job's children. 7 sons, 3 daughters. Right? He had to ask permission. Go back and read the scripture. He had to ask permission to be able to do it. Okay? Now you see, and let's really keep it 100 with you. When you read Genesis, it says the serpent, right? It says the serpent. Okay? The reality is duality. Duality, okay? Because when you create something good, you're creating something bad. Okay? And it's all types of terms for it. Life, light, okay? There's all types of different terms, okay? Good is considered life. Light is considered good. Dark is considered bad. Okay? Evil. The whole concept of dying. And this is you live and you die. Just like, look, check this out. They put it in the movies all the time. In order to have a story, right? You need a good guy, you need a bad guy. Point blank period. You need a good guy, you need a bad guy. There's no story without a good guy and a bad guy. Okay? No matter what movie you look at it. You need a good guy, you need a bad guy. See, the concept is all around us. We just ignore it. Remember, this story is a parable. It's a parable. Okay? It's saying something that is happening, giving you a meaning, but it's a story. That's like me coming up with a children's book and I'm writing a bunch of stories and then people take the stories literal. It's stories. But if you really want to know the concept of it, right? Go back and look at Genesis again. Look at it in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament. This is what, see, God didn't give Adam and Eve an understanding of the tree. Okay? Another concept is the law of consequence, right? I'm probably saying that wrong, but meaning this: when you do something, cause and effect. There you go. Cause and effect. Okay? An action, whether good or bad, right, is going to sit up here and ripple. Action, good or bad, is still going to ripple. Okay? It's an action. And to be all honest with you, you can't get, and I tell people this all the time, right? Check this out. It's the same concept, but pain, right? Good people go through a lot of pain. If you don't go through pain, you won't be able to see. Okay? Heartbreak. When you get your heart broken, right? It's going to happen. Maybe a girl, maybe a job you wanted, maybe you were chasing a career. Heartbreak. How you how you react off a heartbreak, that's the real you. Okay? How you react off a heartbreak, that is the real you. Some people in heartbreak, they go use drugs. Some people in heartbreak go use alcohol. Some people in heartbreak become, you know, whatever. That pain is going to determine who you are as a person. Point blank, period. Okay? Good and evil. We have good and evil inside of us. That is what it's talking about. There's good and evil inside of us. In order to not live in a state of pleasure, okay, where everything is just good, and you know not of survival, you know not of, that's some of the rich kids, right? You can take a nigga from the hood or just a regular, a homeless person. That motherfucker know how to survive. The motherfucker that's used to the money, he ain't gonna know how to survive. Because he's used to it. He's been in a state of pleasure. He's been in heaven. Okay? This is why in some of the chapters it says, what? You know, being, what is that like? Being rich. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying being rich is bad. I'm saying the experience, if you take the money away, some people don't know how to react. And that's pain. And that pain is going to make them do a lot of foolish shit. Right? I'm just like, look, it's just being honest. Right? You know, I'm just being honest. Okay? Now, in that, you can look, you can however you want to sit up here and say it. Okay? God was keeping man from being gods because he was protecting the tree of life. And once again, what did I tell you the tree of life is? Okay. Y'all can go do y'all research. I don't want y'all to sit up here and to just take it. Go do your research. Okay. The tree of life. the seven chakras. Okay? Aligning your seven chakras, the subconscious and the conscious together to make perfect harmony. Okay? The tree of life. Aligning the chakras together. Aligning the chakras together. The this is why you see the Ankh, because the Ankh represents the seven chakras. Okay? With the different colors, letting you know what the different, what it activated. You got the heart chakra, okay? The throat chakra, all right? You have these mini chakras. We have to align ourselves. In order to be gods, we have to align ourselves. Because Jesus did say in Psalms 82:6, ye are gods, okay? The story, if you really want to know, okay, the story two characters that you have to look at in the Bible is Jesus and Paul. Because they try to break it down in different ways. Jesus and Paul is trying to break it down. Okay? Once again, it's a story you have to understand. Sometimes you have to go in the back of the Bible and look at the definitions. Okay? You have to go back. Now remember, I told you, I was saying this. God, right, killed millions of people in the Bible. Some will consider it. Some don't consider it evil because they don't have a problem with it. Now, this is right now, right now, who looks like God? Based on those chapters that I gave you, right? Who looks like God? I will give you a little hint. Look at a baseball field. Who looks like God? Who do? Who does exactly Deuteronomy 20:16-18? Who does that? Because this happening right now. Who does that? Hey, it starts with a G too. It starts with a G too. And they have taken over everything. Okay? They have taken over everything. I'm talking about that government. Because that's who do. They leave nothing breathing. They go to other countries and knock shit down. Babies. families. That's exactly who does that. That's who took over. That's who took over. Look around. Look around. It's not hard to understand. It's not. Can you see it? Are you able to see it? Is your mind open enough to see it? Look at it. See, I'm trying to say this in a nice way, you know, but it go like this. Motherfuckers have been under the concept of a real live enemy, right? Which we can't see. But we do see because it happens in front of us. We're just controlled mentally to not put two and two together and to say, what the fuck? Good and evil is in everybody, okay? Good and evil is in everybody. God and the devil is in everybody. If you heard some of my poems, I point me out as the devil in certain poems. And God, because we're both. We have a choice to do good or bad. And what God is protecting when he said in Genesis, oh shit, protecting this tree of life with the angels that had flaming swords. It's the New Testament is nothing like the Old Testament. The Old Testament is cold than a motherfucker. Okay, the New Testament is buttered the fuck up. Okay, it's buttered the fuck up. Okay, motherfucking the Old Testament is 100 proof. New Testament is 20 proof. Okay, cause the shit is fucking different as a motherfucker. Okay, it's different. The reason why I said look at the baseball field, right? And remember, they tell you this all the time. Baseball was a pastime. It used to be the number one sport. You know what I'm saying? Look at, they call it the diamond. See, look, the mind is and has been under motherfucking attack. Okay? So certain things we gonna miss. This is why there is a collective of good people awakening, okay? Because we see something ain't right. A lot of us feel, and a lot of us is here based on work. Because nobody want to come back here. Nobody want to come. Nobody want to come back here. To experience this bullshit, nobody want to come back here. So you got to learn, in order not to come back here, you have to know your purpose. You have to find your way. You have to align with your purpose. You have to align your subconscious with your conscious and make perfect fucking harmony.